Most people think early retirement is a stock-picking contest. It's not. The real difference shows up in four quiet numbers almost nobody tracks, and one of them can expose why a high income still feels stuck. Two households can earn the same paycheck, buy the same index fund, and still finish 20 years apart. The gap is usually invisible at first, because the wrong number makes progress look better than it is. That's the trap. When the scoreboard is wrong, effort feels productive while the timeline quietly slips. The money story most people tell themselves sounds smart, but the calendar tells the truth. Today I want to give you a cleaner scoreboard. 4 numbers. 1 monthly check-in. No complicated dashboards, no daily stress, no guessing whether you're getting closer to freedom or just staying busy. Because when you track the right numbers, retirement stops feeling like a distant fantasy. It turns into a measurable countdown with adjustments you can actually make before another year disappears without leverage. And there's one number near the end of this video that pulls the other 3 together. Once you see it, random financial decisions start looking expensive in a completely different way. So I'm going to build this from the ground up with real examples, current US data, and math you can update in under an hour monthly. My name is Dave, and if this helps you think more clearly about money, hit like, subscribe, and share this with friends and family chats, because important financial information should travel farther than fear. Number 1 is your savings rate, but not the lazy version people throw around online. I mean the percentage of your usable income that's actually being directed into long-term assets every month. This matters because income alone does not retire you. What changes your future is not what passes through your hands, but what stays deployed after your lifestyle takes its cut. The clean formula is straightforward. Take everything you invested this month, including workplace retirement contributions and taxable investing. Then divide that by your monthly take-home. That result is your operating savings rate. Use take-home because that's the money your life actually had available to spend or invest. Gross income can make disciplined people look weak, even when their real behavior is strong. Let's say Olivia brings home $4,800 monthly. She sends $600 into her brokerage account and another $400 into her Roth account. Her savings rate is 20.8%. If her employer plan takes $300 pre-tax from payroll, I'd still count it toward the future-building side of the equation. In that case, her real savings rate rises to 27%. That difference matters. It changes how fast the portfolio grows, but it also reveals whether raises are improving your freedom or just expanding your fixed expenses with nicer packaging and better marketing. Vanguard says a common retirement target is saving roughly 12% to 15% of annual income. That's solid for conventional retirement, but early retirement usually demands a much more aggressive posture. The harder truth is this: the national personal saving rate was only 3.6% in the latest BEA release for December 2025. That's not an early retirement number. Picture Marcus and Elena. They take home $8,000 monthly together. In year 1, they invest $1,000 monthly. That's a 12.5% savings rate, respectable but not transformative. Now imagine they cut 2 recurring leaks, pause 1 luxury upgrade, and redirect another $1,000 monthly. Suddenly they're investing $2,000, and the rate jumps to 25% without a raise. That one change does more than double the monthly contribution. It also shrinks the life they must later fund. Every dollar you don't lock into lifestyle inflation works twice, once now and once again in retirement. Your first job then is not to chase perfection. It's to establish a repeatable floor. For many households, moving from 5% to 15% changes the trajectory more than finding a hotter fund. To track it cleanly, update one number monthly. Total invested this month divided by total take-home income this month. Keep the file simple enough that you actually return to it. Number 2 is spending, and this is where most retirement plans quietly break. People obsess over account balances while staying strangely vague about what their life actually costs to operate. You can't build a real freedom target from fantasy expenses. If your spending estimate is soft, your retirement number is soft, your withdrawal plan is soft, and your entire timeline becomes polite fiction. The fix is simple but uncomfortable. Pull the last 3 months of bank and credit card activity, add housing, food, insurance, transportation, subscriptions, health costs, childcare, and the random purchases that always appear. Then separate recurring life costs from irregular spikes. The recurring side tells you what normal life costs. The irregular side tells you what your budget pretends is unusual, even though it shows up every year. Say Jordan spends $2,900 monthly on regular living. Over the same 3 months, he also spends $1,500 on travel, car repairs, gifts, and replacement tech. That one-off bucket averages $500 monthly. So his usable monthly spending is not $2,900, it's $3,400. Multiply by 12, and spending becomes $40,800. That number is powerful because it strips away hope-based budgeting. What hurts most people is not one giant mistake, but 1,000 expenses they mentally classify as temporary while repeating them forever. Here is where awareness changes behavior. When people regularly monitor retirement numbers, they're far more likely to save above 10% than people who rarely check. Financial visibility changes conduct. So I don't want you building a complicated system with 11 categories and color-coded guilt. I want one spending number that captures recurring costs, plus your honest share of irregular spending. Make it real enough to guide decisions. If your spending climbs from $40,000 to $52,000, that's not a cosmetic change. That's a retirement delay hiding in plain sight. Let's prove it. A jump of $12,000 in spending does not only cost $12,000 this year. Using a 25 times model, it can raise your required nest egg by $300,000. That's why spending deserves equal attention with investing. People love to ask how to reach $1 million faster, but they resist asking whether their habits are quietly moving the $1 million farther away. Number 3 is investable assets. This is the pile that can actually produce cash flow, compound returns, and future optionality. It's not the same thing as net worth, and confusing them creates false confidence. Your home equity may be valuable. Your car may be useful. Your collectibles may even impress guests. But if they're not realistically funding your retirement cash flow, they should not headline your FI progress. Count retirement accounts, brokerage accounts, cash reserved for near-term investing, treasury holdings, and other productive holdings you truly plan to keep deployed. That's your investable base, the engine that can do financial work. Here is the mistake many people make. They add a paid-down house, a car, jewelry, and furniture, then celebrate a net worth milestone that does almost nothing to reduce next year's work requirement. Imagine Sophia owns a home with $400,000 in equity, has $30,000 in cash, and $270,000 in invested investment accounts. Her net worth looks impressive, but her investable assets are really about $300,000 if the cash is earmarked for investing and the home is not part of the retirement funding plan. That's the number that matters most. Compare her to Liam, who rents modestly and holds $450,000 in productive holdings. On paper, Sophia may look wealthier. In practical FI terms, Liam is probably closer to freedom. This is not anti-home ownership, it's anti-confusion. A beautiful balance sheet can still hide a weak income engine if too much of the value is trapped inside things you can't easily spend. Tracking investable assets also keeps swings in perspective. The S&P 500 gained 16.39% in calendar year 2025, but markets don't owe anyone that every year. That's why I prefer a conservative planning mindset. Treat market returns as helpful, not guaranteed. Your contribution habit should carry the plan. Compounding is the accelerator, not the excuse for sloppy behavior. Once monthly, add up every account that can reasonably fund future living expenses. Ignore the stuff that looks rich but does not generate retirement flexibility. That clean total is your third scoreboard number. Now we reach the number that pulls everything together, years to FI. This is your estimated arrival time, the metric that tells you whether your behavior is buying time or burning it. It's not perfect, and it does not need to be. GPS estimates change when traffic shifts. Your FI estimate changes when saving rises, spending falls, or market growth compounds faster than expected. To calculate it, you first need a target portfolio. Many FI frameworks start with the 25 times rule, meaning you multiply spending by 25 to estimate the asset base needed to support withdrawals. That rule comes from the widely cited 4% withdrawal guideline. It's not a promise, and retirement is more complex than one ratio, but it remains a useful baseline for planning. So if your spending is $40,000, a simple target becomes $1 million. If spending is $60,000, the rough target becomes $1,500,000. Now let's apply that to Jordan, whose honest spending was $40,800. Multiply that by 25 and his rough FI target lands at $1,020,000. If Jordan currently has $240,000 in investable assets, his gap is $780,000. That sounds huge until you stop staring at the total and start measuring the pace. Suppose Jordan invests $18,000 yearly going forward. With zero growth, you might think the trip takes more than 4 decades. But zero growth is not how productive holdings behave over time. Use a compound growth lens instead. If Jordan starts with $240,000, adds $18,000 annually, and earns a long-run average return assumption of 7%, the timeline changes dramatically. Under those assumptions, the portfolio crosses $1 million in roughly 16 years, not 43. That's the difference between linear thinking and compounding reality. The curve stays quiet until suddenly it changes the argument. Now watch what happens if Jordan raises annual investing from $18,000 to $24,000. Same starting balance, same spending target, same 7% assumption. The timeline drops by several meaningful years, or keep the contribution constant and cut spending by $6,000. Now the required FI target falls too. You're attacking the problem from both sides, which is how fast plans become realistic. This is why the 4 numbers belong together. Savings rate controls fuel. Spending sets the destination. Investable assets measure current momentum. Years to FI translates all of it into the only question most people really ask. How long until work becomes optional? That's the emotional heart of the spreadsheet, not portfolio bragging rights, not dinner party vocabulary, not net worth theater. The simple human question underneath all of its time. And when you track that time directly, your behavior changes. An expensive subscription is no longer just $40. It might be months of delayed freedom after you compound its lifetime impact honestly. Let's run a larger example. Renee and Carlos spend $54,000 yearly. Their FI target at 25 times spending is $1,350,000. They currently hold $400,000 invested. They're contributing $30,000 yearly combined. At a 7% assumed return, their timeline is around 15 years. Increase contributions to $42,000 and the timeline compresses far more than most expect. But there's another lever. If they trim spending by $6,000 yearly, their target falls by $150,000. Suddenly, the portfolio needs less, and the annual surplus funding it becomes larger. That's what I mean by a better scoreboard. Most people try to win the game with one lever, usually income, while ignoring the quieter levers that can move the clock even faster. I also want to mention Social Security because ignoring it can distort late-stage planning. The Social Security Administration estimates the average retired worker benefit for January 2026 at $2,071 monthly. That matters because a benefit can reduce the portion your portfolio must cover, especially for people not planning to retire extremely early. It should not excuse low saving, but it can refine the math. For example, if a household expects $24,000 annually from benefits and plans to spend $60,000, the portfolio may need to support only $36,000 of that lifestyle. Using the same 25 times model, that lowers the target from $1,500,000 to $900,000. Same lifestyle, different funding mix. That's a serious planning difference. Of course, timing matters. If you want freedom at 45, Social Security may arrive much later and can't carry the early years. If you want optional work at 58, the bridge period looks smaller. So use benefits carefully. I treat them as a secondary support, not the foundation. A plan feels stronger when the government check is a bonus layer, not the single beam holding up the house. Now let me show you the monthly ritual I want you to follow. Open one spreadsheet. Update take-home income, total invested this month, trailing spending, total investable assets, and your revised years to FI estimate. In month 1, don't worry about precision down to the last dollar. The bigger win is building the scoreboard. Once the dashboard exists, accuracy improves naturally because attention sharpens where measurement begins. Here is a simple order. First, log monthly income and investing. Second, update the spending number using the latest trailing data. Third, total your productive accounts. Fourth, rerun the FI timeline with one assumption set. I like using conservative return assumptions for planning because optimism feels good right until it fails. 7% nominal or something similarly reasonable keeps the math useful without turning the spreadsheet into wishful entertainment. If actual returns run hotter, great, that becomes upside. If they disappoint, your plan still had a margin of sobriety built in. Hope is fine for motivation, but terrible when used as a calculator. Another important point, the 4 numbers are diagnostic, not moral. A bad month does not mean you're bad with money. It means the dashboard caught drift early enough to fix it. Maybe spending jumped because of medical bills. Maybe investing fell because of a job transition. Maybe assets dipped because markets corrected. The point's not guilt. The point's rapid visibility and thoughtful response. Think about what happens when people avoid the numbers. They keep spending as if nothing changed, investing as if time were unlimited, and interpreting net worth as progress even while real flexibility barely improves. That's the financial version of driving with music loud and dashboard lights ignored. You can keep moving for a while, but the repair usually becomes more expensive than the early adjustment would have been. And I want to stress this for younger viewers. Early retirement is not a finish line reserved for high earners. It becomes possible much earlier when behavior aligns before lifestyle bloat hardens into identity. A person making $70,000 with a disciplined savings rate and moderate spending can outrun someone making $140,000 who upgrades every category each time income rises. We see that constantly, because wealth is not just arithmetic. It's delayed ego, controlled defaults, intentional housing, and refusing to let convenience quietly become your permanent payroll department. Those choices are invisible, but the numbers eventually reveal them. Let's revisit the 4 numbers one more time. Savings rate tells you how much of today you're converting into tomorrow. Annual spending tells you what kind of tomorrow you're actually trying to buy. Investable assets tell you what your engine can produce. Years to FI tells you whether the engine and destination are aligned. When one changes, the others either support it or expose the problem. That's why random financial advice feels unsatisfying. A tip about side hustles means little without spending context. A market tip means little without contribution behavior. A retirement dream means little without a timeline model. Your power comes from seeing the system, not from memorizing isolated tricks. Once the system becomes visible, small decisions stop feeling small because you can finally see what they're doing to your clock. So this month, don't ask whether you feel better about money. Ask whether your 4 numbers improved. Better feelings are nice. Better numbers are what create the freedom that feelings alone keep promising. Because that last number is the one people rarely see. A portfolio screenshot can impress strangers. A shrinking freedom countdown number can change your family tree. One is social proof. The other is structural change. I want households talking about these 4 numbers at kitchen tables, not just watching market headlines. Headlines sell urgency. Numbers build independence. The news cycle rents your attention. A personal scoreboard can buy it back. And in the next video, I want to